the reason why all of Latin America speaks Spanish, a European language, is because the church came over and colonized and massacred people all over the Americas. And that scapegoating, oh, these are the evil ones, these are the bad people, oh, these are the ones against God. No, these were people all working with nature. They were all in alignment with the earth. And the only alternative, if you spoke out against them, was death. And so people went silent and our practices became secret. And so if you talked about what you were doing, if you did a ritual with your friend, if you were even just singing songs, you could be killed. And the way that the witch wound affects men is that all these millions of women were killed, so they left behind brothers and husbands and sons and fathers. And those men, if their duty was to provide for and protect these women, you're gonna feel like you failed.
Mia Magik, welcome on Just Tap In. What are you most excited about right now in your life?
Oh my goddess, there's so many good things to be excited about. But personally, I'm just really excited about winter. I have had this really wild experience. I went to Australia like 5 years ago and celebrated summer solstice as Christmas with my friend's family. And since then, I've had this very opposite relationship to the seasons. When it's winter, I'm in summer. When it's summer, I'm in winter. And so this summer, I ended a long relationship and have had like a very amazing and healing dark night of the soul, and like healing girl summer, I called it. And now it's winter and I feel reborn. I'm having my summer moment. I'm feeling inspired. I just submitted my manuscript for my second book. It's solstice. There's just so much magic in this time. And a lot of people get afraid of the darkness or they don't like the cold. And for me, I just feel so enlivened by this time and by the opportunities to really reflect. And it's the Gemini full moon and I'm a Gemini. So I had an amazing full moon hike last night and tried a new trail and like kind of got lost, but found myself and, you know, it's dark. And so just really navigating the darkness and mining the treasures in it. And I've been feeling that really deeply and it feels really good to feel unafraid of the darkness. I feel really excited about that. It's taught me a lot in these last couple months, and I feel so ready in just a few days with the winter solstice to greet the light returning.
And Mia, talk to us about the magic that you can find within Heartbreak.
Oh, so much. I mean, for me, the biggest magic that I found, or the greatest wisdom, was just seeing all of the ways that I had betrayed or abandoned myself, seeing all of the things that I did, because when you're really deep in the spiritual growth work, right, you can't point fingers. There's no blaming someone else outside of you. It's like, well, what did I do? So if you're angry at someone else, or if you're frustrated, or if you feel betrayed by them, it's like, well, how did I betray myself? What did I do? And so for me, it wasn't even as much about the heartbreak itself. It was about the lessons that I learned from what I did wrong to keep myself in a circumstance that wasn't right for me and that was toxic for me and wasn't aligned. And so I just learned so much about my childhood wounding and beliefs that I had that were informing my behavior that I hadn't realized, because when you're in it on a day-to-day basis, you're just doing your thing, you're living your life, you're experiencing existence the way that feels familiar. But once a relationship ends, you can see so much more clearly all the ways that maybe you were relating to your partner like a parent, or informed by some kind of limiting belief that you received in childhood from your peers. And so that has been the greatest magic of this time and this period, was just seeing everything that I was doing that wasn't right for me and getting to work through all of those things. I've been to like 7 retreats this year, going deep, doing the healing work, and it's been like mining the treasure. It's really been finding all of the diamonds that can only be formed by hardship and darkness and pressure, and it's been really, really beautiful. And I know that that's hard to do, right? We all know on the spiritual path it's very hard to take full responsibility and say, oh, this is because of my wounding instead of someone else's. But I think that just really allows you to reclaim the reins of your life, and then you're in charge, and you're the master creator who's creating the masterpiece.
And I think also, in order to be that master creator, we have to be able to find that divine union within ourselves before going out into the external world and trying to seek something that will fulfill us, complete us, fill those little gaps in between that we feel that we lack. So where does divine union fit into your paradigm of reality and how you're working through that right now?
Internally,
Yeah.
for me, it's really about, and this is a big piece that I'm working with on this full moon, this Gemini full moon, is how does my feminine need support from my masculine? So I need to feel nourished and excited and inspired and held, but I also need some discipline. I need some structure. I need some of that warrior energy, that taking action, making shit happen kind of frequency that is very much a masculine trait. Of course, as women, we get a lot of shit done these days, but historically. And so the divine union within for me is all about finding the balance between what I need to do to feel cared for and to be tender, but also to get shit done and to make things happen. And like, even just something now, my partner was like really big and strong. And so he would always, cut the firewood and, bring all the load of the logs in, and I'm building fires. It's winter and I have to go carry those logs myself. And there was a part of me that for the first couple days, I was resisting it and I didn't build a fire. And I was just like, ugh, like it's so annoying. The logs are so far down there. And then I was like, bitch, get your little basket, fill it with logs, and bring it up here. You want a fire, right? Like, make yourself a fire. And I've been doing that every night for the last few nights. And it's just been so nourishing because I'm showing up for myself. And I think that's the biggest thing that women and men need to, people of all genders, right? We need to find this balance within ourselves. What does it mean for me to show up and take action and do what needs to be done in order to receive nourishment, in order to feel held, in order to then, I built the fire and then I just sat and crafted and made Christmas decorations and, like decorated my whole Yule altar. And that's the feminine. But I did this one small act of holding the masculine space for myself to be able to then go into the full expression and the full embodiment of the goddess in her creative expression. And it was just so beautiful. So that's really, I think, what we all need to do is find, and I was only able to do this all because I finally finished my second book and put it in. I've been on the masculine, sitting on the computer 12 hours a day, getting it done every single day for weeks. And I couldn't even do that sweet feminine decoration thing. And so, even though of course like creating is technically in the feminine, but it's about that balance. It's about finding, what do I need to do in order to give myself what I need to receive, in order to receive the nourishment or the care that will then allow my inspiration to flow, so I can be my own muse and I can show up in service to what I'm here to do.
And you've talked a lot about and reflected on the history of witchcraft itself and how that has also created a lot of wounding, not only within women, but also within men. And I'm really curious to know and to get into that space of, when witchcraft was perceived in this way as negative, as bad, as evil, as dark, how did that then carry out in the way that women and men show up in the world now? And what are we here to reclaim?
Oh my God. Well, how many hours do we have? So I think the thing that's interesting is that people don't understand how the witch wound affects men. And the witch wound is just a wound to our power. So we healers and naturopaths and doulas and midwives, those were your doctors. So imagine if today we were like, oh, let's kill all the doctors. We should just wipe out all the doctors. People would think that's crazy because we rely on doctors for our health and well-being. And so that's what happened with the witches. And even you played this beautiful song for us before, The Golden Age by Fia. And it was talking about how our magic was taken by worshipers of the dark. And there's, Wicked is this big, amazing movie out right now. There's a lot of films that are really showing how the powers that be, like the perceived powers, are actually a front and a facade. And they do their best to keep the true power out of power. And so that's what happened. And the witch wound is a fear of our true power, our innate divine magic, supernatural gifts and abilities, speaking our truth. Because if you were outspoken against the church who was coming in and wiping people out of all kinds, you're in Colombia, like the reason why all of Latin America speaks Spanish, a European language, is because the church came over and colonized and massacred people all over the Americas. And that scapegoating, oh, these are the evil ones. These are the bad people. Oh, these are the ones against God. No, these were people all working with nature. They were all in alignment with the earth. And the church came in and killed them and made them bad and said, this is the way that it's going to be. And the only alternative, if you spoke out against them, was death. And so people went silent and our practices became secret. And so if you talked about what you were doing, if you did a ritual with your friend, if you were even just singing songs, you could be killed. And the way that the witch wound affects men is that all these millions of women were killed. So they left behind brothers and husbands and sons and fathers and cousins and lovers and friends. And those men, if their duty was to provide for and protect these women, and these cronies roll into your house and take her away and burn her or drown her or hang her or torture her, you're going to feel like you failed. And we all know what men who feel like they've failed do. They lash out or they act out or they are unkind because they feel like they've just become a total disappointment. And so the witch wound really does affect men as well. And it affects all people in the fear that we have of standing up against these external authorities that are actually just working towards enslaving and disempowering us. And so I think that what we get to do is that's what you're here, right? Like tapping in, just being connected to your divinity. What happened with the church is that I'm all about Jesus. I love Jesus's teachings. I am here for him as an ascended master and an avatar. The kingdom of heaven is within me. I should love my neighbor as myself because they are a reflection of me. All of that is true. But the people who speak on his behalf, the people who have taken his name so in vain and used it to abuse hundreds of thousands, millions and billions of people, like even the Catholic Church has paid billions of dollars in reparations for sexual abuse suits. Billions of dollars. And that's just since the 80s when people started coming out about it. And so if those are the people that we're relying on to connect with God, and they're going to they take tithings, right? You got to pay for your connection to God. I think the greatest thing we can do is reclaim our sovereign connection with God, with the divine. How do I relate? Like I'm looking at these vines just circling around me, and I relate to God as nature and everything that I see before me. The breath in my lungs, the wind within me, the trees and the algae and the seas made for me to breathe. The wind is all around me. It's like unconditional love. And then there's water flowing through my veins like rivers and creeks and streams of blood. And then the earth, the mountains, the stones within them are like the bones in my body. And then there's fire, there's light beating in my heart in every single moment.
Hmm. Hmm. In
And
that song
those,
that we
yeah.
go ahead.
No, just those elements, that is God. We are a reflection of nature, and God is all around us. And this holy planet that provides us with absolutely everything, every bite of food, every drop of water, she's a living, sentient deity upon whose skin we are walking in every moment. And excuse me, if we can reclaim that, if we can reconnect with her and God all around us, sorry, then we're winning. And then we can tap in again in a way that shows us our path through, and we are divinely guided in every moment.
Hmm. Beautiful. That song that we played in the very beginning, The Golden Age by Fia, it says in one part, the wisdom of the temples, the arts that got lost, stolen and abused by worshippers of the dark, they are reclaimed by the priestesses of the golden age. When they mention arts that were lost, what are we talking about, and how are we reclaiming those arts again? Not to utilize them and channel them toward the darker agendas on the planet, but towards something else that will then create this golden age that we've been visioning and inspired to create.
I think that the biggest thing that the priestesses do or did, and we can see it, you're asking about how it plays out between men and women now, and the feminine aspects of our being for all of us have been villainized: sexuality, creativity, and emotions. Doesn't matter who you are, doesn't matter where you are, you're not encouraged to feel your feelings. Sex has been commodified and vilified and capitalized upon and demonized. And then creativity, it's like, oh no, we don't need artists. We need technology. We don't need you to be creative. Oh, that's a reliable career. You can't depend on that. It's like, well, but movies and music and all of the things, everything that entertains us, museums, that's all creativity. And it's all been taken from us. And well, it hasn't. It's present, but we're told not to do it. We're told not to feel it. And so the priestesses of the golden age, I feel the temple arts that I connect with most, I do a lot of sacred sexuality work. I do a lot of emotional catharsis. So, the things that I'm most known for are sex magic and using orgasmic energy for manifestation, and the rage rituals, letting out emotions that have been repressed and suppressed and beaten down within you for maybe your entire life, and letting them come forward and letting them have a safe space to be released and expressed. And I think that that's, how the virality of the rage rituals went this summer is such a important piece of information for how men and women do relate to, react with one another, their emotions. It's all just so shamed. It's all so bad. It's all so wrong. It's all so, oh, they're Karens. Oh, they're venting their anger at their husbands. Oh, it's so like, ugh, I wouldn't want to run into them in the woods. I'd rather take the bear. And it's all because no one has been taught to feel safe in their emotions. And no one knows how to relate to sexuality in this sacred way. And I think that is the work of the priestesses. That is what we were doing when I go in and do these beautiful sensoriums, like working with all of our senses. That's not sexual, it's sensual. And I lead these experiences in my retreats and I share them with people, and they are always nervous at the front end, and at the end they're like, oh my God, this was the most natural thing I've ever experienced. This was so beautiful. The same with sexual pleasure. we're not taught that like hearing someone else's orgasm, oh, it's bad, or it's just porn, or I'm not supposed to be listening to this because it's my parents or it's my roommate and the closed door behind me. But when you are in an orgasmic cacophony, a symphony of pleasure surrounded by other women who are just feeling their divine birthright, what their bodies were literally made to experience, it is one of the most miraculous transmissions that I have ever experienced. It changed my life from the very first time I tried it, and I have been offering it and changing women's lives since that day. And it is, I think that those are the pieces. It's the feminine within all of us that has been made wrong. And so when men can find empowered relationships with their emotions and with their pleasure and with their creativity, like this, like what you're doing here, and we have so many amazing friends like Andre, people who are doing beautiful things with their creativity. That is how you create the divine union within. You find the balance of, for yourself, okay, what is my heart want to make? What am I here for? What did I come to this planet for? And I really, the priestess work that I have done, I think that there's many different iterations. There's so many different types of magic, and even just the anointment with herbs. That was such a huge part of Egyptian practice, was using the oils, whether it was for mummification and death, or for, the reason why we associate the birth of Jesus with frankincense and myrrh is because those are womb herbs. Those are wombs for healing post-birth. And so, of course we brought them to Mary because they were going to help her, stop the bleeding and help her womb heal more quickly. And it's just so, all of those little pieces of wisdom have been hidden and have been taken or kept from us. And we're all reawakening. And I believe that's how we reclaim the golden age within ourselves and bring it forward. And the temple arts they're so precious and so holy and so sacred. And we did a co-ed sex magic a few weeks ago with my community. And it's like, there's not an orgy. Nobody is touching each other. Everyone is in their own safe, sacred space. But Eros is celebrated. Sexual energy is safe. Erotic innocence is allowed to be present. And that's just, to me, like that is a totally new world kind of way of living. And it's one that I'm so devoted to and dedicated to. And it is not for the faint of heart, but I feel like that's such an important way for us all to tap in, is by reclaiming the aspects of femininity that we all have. We all have a feminine side, and finding our way to embody them most safely and in a way that feels holy.
As you brought up Jesus and Mary Magdalene, I'm curious to know, in what ways do you feel that they were practicing these sacred arts of sex magic?
Well, I think the kinds of miracles that were being created are, when you look at the Egyptian teachings about the Ka body. So the Ka is like our spiritual body, right? It's our energetic body. It's a version of us that is us, but it's larger than us. It's like the extended auric field. And so when you are doing a lot of these energetic practices, and the reason why Mary, Jesus's mother, and Mary, Jesus's wife, have the same name is because Mar, where we get the word mer and sea, and there's so many different versions of this word that become ocean, was a title of the priestesses in Egypt. That was their name. The way that like Merlin was a title in the Druid lineage. The Merlin he was like the high Druid priest. And often the Merlin was a woman. So that's another piece that we're going to put a pin in that one. But Mar, Mary, Magdalene, Mary, Anna, Mary, we kind of just know Jesus's mother as just Mary, right? All of those were titles. Those were the ordination or the initiation of having been a priestess in Egypt, trained in the Isis lineage of sex magic, which was about using your sexual energy, which is the most powerful energy we have because it is creative life force energy, to charge yourself up, to fill your Ka body, to really create a wellspring of energy that then when you put your hands on someone, right, which is what Jesus was known for, hands-on healing, when you put your hands on someone and you transmit that energy, you can change their life. You can heal them. You can absolutely create massive transformation. And you're making a joke about like, oh, if I levitate off of this call, there are people who can levitate.
You've
And
seen them.
yeah, and there are people who can make fire with their hands, and it's all just energy. It's all just an accumulation and a focused laser transmission of energy. And I made someone levitate once. It was one time. I haven't done it again. It was like felt like a whoa, holy shit, can't believe it. But after it happened, we like floated this guy up in front of us, me and some other women, 3 women, or like 3 total. And the amount of energy that I felt, the way that I felt, I could have like taken off and flown. It was some of the highest energy I've ever experienced. And so I believe what Jesus and Mary Magdalene were doing was lots of sex magic, lots of energetic practices, filling each other up, especially because like we are designed to go together in that way. In union, you can fill and charge each other up. And the masculine is actually like, when you look at our genitals, right? The masculine is the giver and the feminine is the receiver. So it would have really been like him charging her up to charge him up, like this battery, right? Like the eternal cycle. And that practice, these energetic practices, that is where we get the immaculate conception, is because it was energetically immaculate. It's like we know what we're doing. We are calling in a spirit of a highly evolved avatar. We are going to be so pristine and clean and clear within ourselves. We have transcended and transmuted any and all of our shadows to become clear channels and vessels for this sacred divine energy of sexuality, not, disempowered lust or woundedness. It's like, this is pure consciousness. And that is what the Immaculate Conception was. It's like, you can't make a baby without the 2 it takes to tango, but you can create something so powerful through conscious conception. And that's what the immaculate nature of even Jesus being born was. And there's a Gospel of Mary Magdalene that has been deleted from the Bible. Jesus was a rabbi, and rabbis are always encouraged to marry. It's not like Catholicism. And so even though she's never mentioned as his wife, if he was an unmarried rabbi, that would have been a big deal. People would have talked about that. They would have been like, oh my God, he's not married. So it stands to reason that he was married, and that's why she was there. And all of these other gospels in the Bible, they were written 300 years after Jesus's death. That's when the Bible really came forward. He wasn't even there anymore. These weren't people that were sitting by his side that wrote these things. And so I think that it was all just part of a really massive systemic fear-based, we're talking about like the dark forces. Man, they did a number on our planet, and it's up to us to fix it. And so that's what we're doing here by having these conversations, by doing these energetic practices, by reclaiming these temple arts, by learning how to tap in to and with the divine independently. We don't need a middleman. We don't need somebody to tell us how to do it. We don't need someone to, take our money in order to connect with the divine. It's literally all around you, everywhere you look, in every single moment, in the gaze of every person that you meet. And so I think that that's what Jesus and Mary were living in accordance with.
Your life's work in the Gene Keys is 47, with the shadow of oppression, the gift of transmutation, and the CD of transfiguration. And the way that Richard Rudd describes transfiguration in the Gene Keys is the true meaning of the crucifixion. And I'm really curious to know how you tie that life's work in. What does that really mean to you to transfigurate in your life, and the true meaning of the crucifixion as we're talking about Jesus, what he went through? What does that really mean in today's world?
Well, you look at people who have spoken out even still today, and they get crucified pretty often. All the people who have created free energy devices, they disappear. Someone that really inspired me was Sinead O'Connor, and she was this amazing Grammy-winning pop star, and she got on Saturday Night Live in 1992 and tore up a picture of the Pope and said, "Fight the real enemy." Because she comes from Ireland. She was severely abused in a girl's home by Catholic priests. She watched they've called them the Magdalenes, these women, unwed women, so unmarried women who got pregnant, were often sent away, and their babies were taken from them. There's a movie that Judi Dench was in called Philomena that's all about that. And when Sinead ripped up this picture of the Pope, she was blacklisted. She was completely removed from any and all media. Her music stopped being played, and she was a pop star. She was a huge pop star. And so I think that is something that is happening. It's happening all the time. It's not totally safe to speak out. And we're all so blessed that we can even have these conversations. The things that I do, I would have been burned for hundreds of times over already. Of even just a few hundred years ago, some of the last known witch burnings were through the early 1900s in places like Tanzania, where genital mutilation is still occurring, stoning in Iran. There are still very much different iterations of witch burnings occurring on this planet now. And so for me, that life's work, the Gene Keys, how I see that is because, it's Professor McGonagall's class. And so when I read that, actually, it's so funny that you bring that up. I'm like, I don't even know how you got that, but great research on the back end. And my friends and I, it was actually summer solstice, and I was with Blue and Reggie and a bunch of our sisters, and we were laughing, and they were like, "Oh, what's Mia's life's work going to be? Magic? Ha 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 ha." And we were like, "Cute." And then we looked at my chart and saw that it was Transfiguration. And I do jokingly call myself the young Professor McGonagall because she teaches Transfiguration, and I teach interpersonal alchemy and interpersonal transformation. And when I saw that word, I had a full-blown psychedelic experience, completely sober, sitting at a dinner table, sobbing, crying, laughing hysterically, and sort of like having an energetic orgasm all at the same time, because it's the one word in the English language that could have had that level of significance for me. And so how I see it is sort of hearkening back to that first question about heartbreak, is what can I do to change something that I don't like, or something that I don't want, or something that hurts me or hurts others, into something I do want, into something that serves, into something that generates and is healing. And so for me, that's why my books, my work, my teachings, I don't really teach spells and stuff. Like, yes, I'm a witch, but I don't teach spells. I don't do little charm bags and things like a lot of other witches do. I'm a healer. And so I want to change inner child wounds into inner child motivation and wisdom. And I want to turn pain into pleasure and power. And I want to turn our trials into triumphs. And so that's what, for me, the Transfiguration is all about. It's like, what are the shadows that I've experienced, and how can I turn them into diamonds? How can I use the lessons and change the knowledge from conceptual into integrated embodied wisdom? And I think that, there's a lot of different ways that crucifixion occurs. Many of us are strung up for speaking truth and for sharing what's real. And, people get shadow banned on Instagram for speaking out against things that, the powers that be don't want people to know about. And I feel like that's something that we're all up against right now because we've all been silenced. And one of the things that happened during the witch trials as well, weaving back in some of these other parts of the conversation that we've had, is that you could also just accuse someone of witchcraft in order to steal their land. Oh, they've got a really great field full of livestock. They've got a bountiful harvest coming. They've got a full well. She's got a hot husband, whatever it is. And you could just accuse someone of witchcraft and take all of their resources. And so I think that that's really occurring here as well, is that people are taking from others just by making them wrong, just by villainizing them. Let's crucify them so that we can take whatever that space is. I mean, you look at some of the theories around what just happened in Asheville. It's like, well, there's this huge lithium mine. There's all these insane deposits of minerals that are worth millions and billions of dollars. Okay, well, maybe that land was crucified in order to take hold of those mineral deposits. And it's just it's happening all the time. It's happening all over the world. And even the Catholic priest who wrote the book called The Hammer of Witches, Malleus Maleficarum, it was all about torturing and identifying witches. And it was all just like bullshit. All just these weird things like, oh, if you find this mark, or she's allergic to iron, she can't touch iron, all these crazy things. And he was inspired to write that book because he accused a woman of witchcraft without any evidence of foul play, no evidence at all of any malfeasance. His only argument was about her sexual promiscuity. And the jury found her innocent, and he was humiliated and mortified. And then he wrote this treatise on witches and how to spot them and take them out. And one of the things that was done for women, like crucifixion, my God, I mean, constantly done to thousands of women. There was a torture tool called the pear of anguish, and it was a little bulb that was heated in the fire like a fire poker until it was red hot. Then it was inserted vaginally, and it would open like this and then be ripped out of these poor women. And then they would be forced, blood gushing down their skirts, but no one can see it. And they would be forced to sit on an iron chair. And when they would scream in pain, he's like, oh, cool. Look, see, she's allergic to iron. And often one of the only ways to escape that kind of torture was to name someone else. So it became unsafe to have friends because, of course, in that kind of circumstance, unless you're a Navy SEAL who's been trained to withstand torture, you're going to try and get out of it. You're going to try to escape. And there are hundreds of records of like letters that people wrote to their families saying, they made me confess. They made me confess to doing something that I did not do. And it was the only way to survive. And so our world has been built upon crucifixion, quite honestly. Our world has been built upon good people being tormented by the dark forces and being stripped of our sovereign power in order to, you look at the world that we're living in, like, people are so reliant upon the convenience of Amazon, and we think that we can't survive without plastic, even though our species survived without plastic for hundreds of thousands of years. No one knows their farmers. No one knows the people that are growing their food. We're sick and poisoned. Children are obese in a way that they never have been before. And it's all because the true power has been crucified and villainized, and the false power and the dark has taken control. And so we all get to really, use Jesus as a great example, right? Like, even he was just trying to do good work and was killed. And so it takes a lot of courage. It takes a lot of courage to be speaking these words and saying all the things that we are. And the witch wound does come up. I'm sure, there's moments where you still get afraid. There's moments where I still get afraid, where I'm like, oh, fuck, this is a really big thing. I don't know. I'm scared. I don't want to share this. I don't want to talk about this. What are people going to think? What are they going to say? And I do it anyway. And you do it anyway. And we're all doing it anyways, because this is the only way to create real change. And there will be sacrifice. There will be. We don't know what that looks like. We don't know when, God will come for us. It's going to happen to us all at some point. And so I think that the greatest gift we can offer to ourselves and our species and the future of this planet and moving into the golden age is to just do it anyway. Like, do the thing that will get you crucified, because sometimes you're the only one brave enough to do it.
And what is our real power and what is false power in that little segment that you really highlighted? What is the difference between those two, and how can we recognize it and discern between those?
Real power is generative. I don't think it takes from anyone. I think that because it's an infinite source and it's from the source, the infinite creative life force of the entire universe, it doesn't need to take anything from anyone. It's something that the first thing you said was like grounding us into the earth. You can just plug your feet into the ground and receive electromagnetic energy and power. But when you look at the powers that are running our life and our society, it's all power that is taking from the earth in some way, where we've desecrated natural resources. We've poisoned water and air, which we need to survive. We've wiped out 97% of old growth forests that are the lungs of the planet. That's what's creating our air. That's what acts as antennas to draw the fog and the rain in. And we've seen massive droughts all over the world because there aren't forests anymore. And then the soil can't keep the water, and then there's flooding. And so I think that that's really the biggest definition, is that true power comes from within. It doesn't require anything else. It is an innate way of living and operating, and we can receive, we can generate, and then, like that Jesus and Mary Magdalene kind of energy, it's a constant reciprocal recycling flow. Like, when you're in your power, you don't want to take from anybody. You're like, I'm good. And then you give of yourself. And that's Andrew Carnegie has this quote that the truest marker of success is he who has helped the most others to succeed. And I think that that's just a big loss that we've had in our world. You look at the education system, you look at the food system. You don't live in America, but the way that our healthcare system is a sick care system, and the insurance and the pharmaceuticals, it's all designed to keep people unwell and to keep them in control. And I think that that's a very clear marker of false power. The fact that we think we can't survive without the convenience of Amazon anymore is just mind-boggling to me, when our ancestors literally had to grow their own sheep, then shear their own sheep, then spin their own yarn, then weave their own sweaters, then fix the sweater if it got a hole. And we're like, oh no, I can get a new one, it'll be here in, 15 minutes. We can survive. We are so much more capable than we believe. And I think rediscovering those capabilities is a really good way to generate power. And it's not just in weaving your sweater. It's in climbing the mountains. It's in taking more effort to go to the farmer's market instead of the grocery store. One of the things that I do is everything I buy, except of course, I have a laptop. I have to keep up with the things, not going to say that I'm 100%. But for my home, I only furnish my home with things secondhand because there's enough stuff. And for my clothes, I only buy things that are secondhand. There is enough clothing on this planet to clothe the next 6 generations already right now. Every baby, every child, every grandparent, everything, everybody could be clothed for 6 generations. And so I just do my best to not buy new stuff at all, ever. And I still manage to look pretty good. And I feel in such right relationship with the earth. And I think that's a huge way that we can all rediscover our own unique iterations of power and magic, is by reconnecting with nature, because that helps us remember our true nature.
In what ways do you feel that the earth, or Mother Gaia, is going through a transfiguration right now?
You know, one of the things that I hear from her, it's like talking to this mango tree in Hawaii, and I saw this little sapling, and it had been, someone just like had rolled through with a machete and like chopped it right at the top. Its like whole little head had been cut off, and right beneath where it had been chopped, a new little branch was just growing sideways. And it said to me, it was like, "See, I'm not worried. Like I got decapitated, and now I'm just taking a new path. I'm just taking a new path." And so the nature of the goddess, the nature of our planet is abundance. She can regenerate. She can grow again and more. She'll keep looking at the oak trees. Like they will keep making acorns, and 1,000 forests come from a single seed, because this one acorn is going to grow this one oak tree that's going to grow millions of acorns, and then they will fall, and those acorns will become trees, and they will grow more acorns, et cetera, et cetera. And so I do think that if the planet were left to her own devices, she could regenerate very quickly. And I think that we as a species have chosen to utilize our will and our power for just misguided paths. And our opportunity is to remember again that we are a reflection of nature. So if the earth is our body, and the water is our blood, and the air is our breath, and the fire is our power and our will, then we're toxifying the earth and the water with plastic. We're polluting the air. We poison our water with, like the way that we use like toilets. I mean, people in third world countries would kill for the water in our toilets, and we flush it down. And I think that the more aware we can be of the fact that nature is us and we are it, we're not like part of nature, we are nature, then we will reawaken to the ways that all of our indigenous ancestors, because everybody comes from somewhere indigenous, as long as you go far back enough. And all of those tribes, all of those people were working in harmony with the earth. They had to, because you had to survive. And so I think that we can remember those ways, and people are doing it by starting off-grid communities and, having permaculture food forests and homeschooling their kids together in, like nature-based unschools, they're calling it. And so there are so many ways to do it. But I think that I think that she's asking us to awaken, and she's asking us to return to a golden age. And she wants us to see her as the mother that we all share. And it's always darkest before the dawn. And it's been getting dark here. And so I think that, then I look at our lives, I look at my life, and it doesn't feel dark, even in like the darkest year or time that I've had in a while. There was still so much light and so much magic and so much beauty. And I think that that's what we're capable of creating here, is even in all of these challenges and all of these hardships and the destruction that has occurred on our planet. Like I'm from the redwood forest, 10,000-year-old trees that don't exist anymore. It's going to take 10,000 years for those beings to return to this earth, but they can, and they will if given the time. And so I think that that's what's happening for our species as well, is we're on a timeline where we're being asked to awaken. And when we can tune into and learn from nature and from Gaia and from this earth, we reconnect to the universal and cosmic rhythms and cycles. And being in harmony with nature literally makes your life easier and better, because it's the natural way of being. And so I think that that's what she's asking of us. That's why we're having some of these wild natural disasters, and that's why people are getting out and, craving nature even more and learning about earthing and grounding, which is just how all of our ancestors, like all these biohacking things, like, oh, a cold plunge. It's like, that's how our ancestors used to bathe. That was it. That's all you had. It was like cold water. So, we do all these things as antidotes to modern life that are just how our previous ancestors lived. And so I think that we just get to keep committing to those practices, and the more that we do, the more things will change.
Beautiful family, Emilio here. I just wanted to take a quick moment to acknowledge what it really means for you to be here. What it means for you to be taking the time out of your day to tell the universe, this is what I value. This is what I want more of. I want to cultivate in my environment, in my space, in my mind, my heart, and my soul, conversations that will uplift me, that will raise my consciousness, that will raise my frequency, that will allow me to get to know more about myself and the world around me. That is why you're here. That is what I believe that we're doing here. And I will never be the type of person to tell you subscribe now, do it, press the button. I do not want to be that person, but I do want to acknowledge that the size of the community, how we grow, is directly correlated to the people that we can attract on this show, the beautiful conversations that we can have, and also the resources that we can pour into making this a movement rather than just a podcast. And I need your help, and I need everyone else's help. I cannot do this alone. And from looking at our analytics, 45% of the people watching this are subscribed. That means 65% are not. And this is an invitation, because a subscription to a channel on this platform is telling the platform, this is what I want more of. Feed me more of this, because this interests me. This fills my soul. This nourishes me. This fills my mind. And I hope that we can continue doing that for you. If you made it up to this point in this video, that's why we're here. And it's a joy to be able to be doing this. This is my dream job right here. You guys are making it possible. So from my heart to yours, thank you to everyone who has subscribed to the channel. And thank you for being here. It's truly a blessing. And I can't wait to continue building and growing with you guys. We're just getting started. See you in the next one. When it comes to wielding our magic, I was telling you that I was just coming back from a Dr. Joe Dispenza retreat, and he's teaching us how, you can create from the third dimension. You can create from physical reality, matter to matter. But if you do that, you have to abide by Newtonian physics and the laws of the material world. As soon as you start shifting your perspective into the fifth dimensional quantum world, the quantum world abides by very different laws. So I was curious to weave that into your understanding of magic. If there are any of the universal laws that we must abide to in order to create magic and cast our spells and to create the life that we desire, how does magic tie in with these natural laws of the universe, whether that's the quantum or the Newtonian world or the physical world? Where do you see the intersection there?
Well, my first book, Intuition, is all about the law of correspondence. And the law of correspondence states, as above, so below, as within, so without. And that was a really powerful manifestation or pathway of magic for me, is understanding that, okay, if I want to operate beyond the 3D, I have to know that, like what I just said about nature, that the 3D is reflecting me. So everything that I see before me is something that exists within me. So if I have judgment, or if I have comparison, or if I have, some againstness towards someone else, what am I against within myself? What am I judging within myself? What part of me is comparing because I don't feel worthy? And so for me, magic has been, you, in our opening prayer for this conversation, you spoke so much about the elements. And so that is how I bring the 3D the Newtonian world, like here I am, it's physical, right? There's all these elements all around me, but these elements are also within me. So they are the building blocks of creation. And how can I connect with the frequency, that sort of fifth dimensional energy, right? The earth it's dense, it's grounded, it's solid, it's stable. So I can connect with those frequencies. It also is generative, it's abundant, it grows, but it also drops and decays. It lets things go that are ready to die and uses them as compost and alchemizes them into fuel and food for the future. Then the wind, right? It's everywhere. We're the only ones who put up blocks. We put up walls and borders and we say, oh, this is my house, or this is your house, or this is my space, or this is your space, this is my country. But the air is everywhere. It's like an energy of unconditional love. So how can I connect with the winds of change? How can I breathe life into, where we get the word inspiration comes from, actually the word spirit, and spirare in Latin means to breathe or to breathe life into. So inspiration is breathing life into ourselves. How can I connect with the frequency of the air to use ritual, to speak my words, to cast my spells? We call it spelling because every one of our words, everything we say about ourselves and about the world and what we believe, is casting a spell. So how do I connect with the energy of the air? Clear, focused, beautiful, pristine air. Like, you walk into a forest, or the world after the rain, like the petrichor. That's the frequency. These abundance is a conscious vibration in the universe that we can attune to or connect with or align to. And then fire, right? It's transformative. It changes things. It can change a landscape. It can change your food. It can change the darkness in a room. So how do I connect with that energy? How do I align with that frequency in my life when I want to take action? I want to move. I want to go quickly somewhere. And then the water, it's fluid. It's flow. It's malleable. It's adaptable. It's like I can adjust to this form. Oh, you want to fill me in this vessel? Like, okay, great. Then I'll take this shape. Or now I'm going to be charged. I'm sure you're familiar with Dr. Emoto's work. Oh, you want to charge me with hate? Well, then I'm going to remember hatred. You want to charge me with love? I'm going to remember love. And I'm going to remember peace. And I'm going to remember beauty. And so we can utilize the awareness and the frequencies of the physical elements in the 3D and tap into their energy and what they are beyond just in the physical. And so that's really what I do in ritual. Is I'm a healer. My rituals are very somatic. They're very cathartic. There's always some element of using the body as a vessel, because if everything above is below, if everything without is within, then it all exists in my body. Then I am the microcosmic expression of the macrocosm. I am the projector of this movie, of this reality. And so that's how I work my rituals. There's a lot of breath. There's a lot of sound. There's a lot of movement. There's a lot of visualization, of meditation. There's a lot of self-touch, or using words and expression and acknowledgement, or, like screaming, whatever it is that needs to come out. And that's really how I work my magic, is what in this microcosm, what in this three-dimensional reality do I want to shift and change? How do I then access the wisdom or the awareness or the energy of the thing I want to change in that 5D, like our earthly reality? It's our material existence, right? It's our home, it's our body, it's our car, it's our relationships, it's all the physical aspects of existence, material possessions. Even the word matter comes from mother. So it's like all like from the earth, matter, material. Then the air, it's the mind, it's the thoughts, it's that like infinite realm of ideas and expression and voice and song. And the water, it's our tears, it's our blood and our sweat, it's our emotions, it's our pleasure, it's our sensuality. And then the fire is how we take action and how we transform ourselves. And so those are really they are the elemental building blocks of creation. And I find them to be also the building blocks of being able to work magic in this three-dimensional reality, and utilizing yourself as a physical being with the Ka body, right? With that energy, with an aura, with a spirit. How do I use that fifth sacred thing, that quintessence that is the spirit and the divine spark, which animates all of life? How do I connect with that through any of these medium, through any of these pathways like the elements, and then change whatever it is that I want? And why I wrote my book about the law of correspondence is because I noticed that I could use the 3D to change things on a higher level. And so it's about colors and numbers and symbols, and the way that I showed you my like epic Yule altar before we started. That altar means so much. The oranges represent the sun, and the pomegranates represent fertility, and the wreath with the owl feathers represents being able to see through the darkness, and the candles represent the light and the light returning, and the geodes represent the gems and jewels of the deep earth, and their white clear crystal quartz. And so it's about purity and that pristine cleanliness and clarity of energy. So it's like, cool, looks like a Christmas altar. Like, great. The evergreens, you bring the evergreen boughs in, and that represents eternal life and maintaining, like, revivifying through the winter when everything else dies. And so it's not just an altar, it's a representation of what I'm calling in. It's a representation of what I'm celebrating. It's a representation of the life that I'm building and that I am in devotion to and I'm in honor of. And it's just like the Christmas decorations on my mantle, but it's not. Nothing is. And so that, I think, is the greatest magic we can use, is understanding that everything has significance and everything has meaning. And the more intention we give to any part of our lives or ourselves or our practices, the more magic we're able to create. And that's what then also like rewires that patterning that the powers that be have over us, because then we reclaim our divinity. And it's like it's a conversation between us and God in any moment, just by building this altar, because the universe doesn't speak English or Spanish. It speaks symbols, and it speaks frequency, and it speaks energy. And so when we can use the symbols that have these 5D, right? Even just using like a Kuan Yin, using particular colors, they have this energetic signature that means something. And we get to wield all of those symbols to say, hey, God, hey, universe, this is what I'm doing here. This is what I'm calling in. This is what the 3D version of me is ready to step into. Like, guide me, let me know what else you need from me. And I'm here for it. And for me, it has certainly worked.
We are the conscious observer that allows the universe to witness all of its meaning and all of its beauty in its creations. And we're beautiful reflections of that as well. When it comes to, the intentionality behind our words, my life's work in the Gene Keys is Gene Key 62 with the shadow of the intellect. And then it goes the gift of precision, the city of impeccability. And it's called the language of light on the Gene Keys. So I've had to really train myself to get away from my intellect and speak through the precision of my heart. And I feel like when that transmutation goes through from the mind to the heart, the words that we speak are much more clear in alignment to our truth. So I wanted to ask you there, what is one spell that you found that people have constantly repeated to themselves that are holding them back the most?
I can't. Oh, I can't. Like, oh, they would what? They would laugh at me. They would think I'm stupid. They would say I can't do it. They would say I would fail. But I think I can't is the biggest one. And we tell ourselves that all the time about things that we want to do, places we want to go. I think the biggest one, I support people with money so often because I want spiritual people to be abundant, because right now the people who are abundant on the planet are just desecrating our us as resources. They're utilizing humans as resources, and they're pillaging and plundering the planet. You look at like the Vatican, one of the richest entities on earth. It's like, well, where did they get all this gold from? Indigenous civilizations all over the world. They just stole it. And so I hear people say, oh, I can't afford that. Oh, I can't. Full stop. That is a spell that you are casting on yourself. When you say I can't, you're making it true. If you say that you can, you're also making that true. And the word originally was spelled W-Y-R-D, weird, and it became weird and word. And it means destiny, because the weird ones are the ones who were not moving in the direction of the herd or the flock. They were moving towards their fate or destiny. And we are speaking our destiny with every word that comes out of our mouths. And because our bodies are 60 to 70% water physically and 99% on the molecular level, and water holds memory, everything you are saying to yourself, your body remembers. The water in your blood is remembering and is making that true. It's making it into your experience. And so I think that when people, even for me, something that I always practice is like, oh, instead of saying, oh, I can't, it's like, oh, I'm choosing something different right now. Or my focus is really, my priority is something that, actually this is what would work better for me. There's so many ways that you can express, I don't want to call it negative, but that you can express your needs without disempowering yourself. And so that's a huge piece that I work on with so many of my students and clients, is saying and speaking in the affirmative. Even saying something like, and people use this in prayer all the time, like letting go of anything that no longer serves me. When you say the word no, your brain can't process that. So you're saying, letting go of what serves me. And so I always say, I release anything and everything other than that which serves my highest good, my deepest service, my fullest expression, whatever it is. I release anything other than, just speaking in the affirmative. That's how your brain understands all the time. So if you're talking negatively or you're talking about things you don't want, your brain is still understanding those as like your focal point. And so I always encourage people to, it's like, I'm letting go of, not following my intuition, or like I'm releasing not being able to trust myself. It's like, no, I now proclaim that I am trustable. I can trust myself. I am committed to following my intuition in every moment. I release any habits or patterns or beliefs that have held me back in the past, or that convinced me to ignore my intuition, anything like that, so that you're proclaiming in the affirmative and casting the kind of spell that you actually want to cast. And it takes more awareness. So many of our words have been turned against us. Even the word insane, in means internal and sane means health in Latin. So like to be insane was to be healthy internally, like sound mind. Conspiracy, again, spirare, the breath. Con means with or together. So like a conspiracy was us breathing life into each other. It was like sharing truth with one another. And now it's become this like, oh, so bad, so evil. There's so many words like that. The word vagina means sheath for a sword. Like, no, this is not, I don't accept weaponry in my sacred portal, which is why I use the word pussy or yoni. Some people don't like pussy. They're like, oh my God, it's so bad. I'm like, have you ever met a cat? They take a while to warm up, Like, you have to treat them nicely. You have to like be aware of the energy with a cat. And so I'm like, yeah, sure, that's more appropriate. And so our words they are spells, and they're very important to be aware of and to use immaculately and pristinely. Or
Now, what are the
impeccably.
words impeccably?
Yeah.
Now, what are the words that you found bring more life into your life? Let's say, which are the most powerful words that you like to utilize to bring in, that magnify your destiny, that magnify your purpose on the planet right now?
Well, definitely for me, I love the word divine because it's an adjective and a noun and a verb, to divine wisdom, right? That's what the law of correspondence is all about. It's really like the oldest form of divination. How do we receive the messages? And so if I, like right now, there's all these bees buzzing around. So I'm thinking about the hive mind, and I'm thinking about serving the queen, and I'm thinking about making the honey, the sweetness of life, and sourcing the nectar from what's around me. So everything is information. And that's what divination used to be. Before we had tarot cards and all of that, it was like, oh, how did this flock of birds fly by? How did the waves crash? How did the wind look when it, you know, uh, bus blew through the field? That was how we used to divine conversations from God. And so I think also reclaiming that word God, instead of it being something that is like this bearded white dude in the sky who's going to smite you for misbehaving, again, seeing it as everything that is around you, as every person, as every element, as yourself. You know, when you look in the mirror, knowing that that's God looking back at you. And for me, I would say that like my biggest practice in that way has been really reconnecting to my inner child. That's what the things that my inner child loved to do, excuse me, wanted to be, everything that she always played pretend. She played in these fantasy worlds, and she wanted to be, you know, a warrior and a knight and all of these cool things. And now I am a female crusader. I am fighting the battle and the war that has been waged against the feminine every single day. But I'm not doing it again. I'm not fighting men. I don't want to be in a battle against men. I want to stand side by side with them. And so I was always like such a tomboy as a little girl. I was like, you know, all my friends were boys. And so I think that that's the greatest way we can cast spells for the future and for ourselves and what we want to create is to reconnect with our inner child, what we loved, what we wanted to do, who we wanted to be, how we wanted to see and experience the world, and let that be our guide and not the wounds of our inner child, right? Because my inner child thought that success was scary. People bullied me for having big dreams. It was like, oh, if I become the person that I think I'm supposed to be, I'm going to be rejected and abandoned. So we want to deal with, that's the part we want to transfigure. We want to transfigure our inner child's wounds, see the habits and behaviors that are being informed by our disempowered beliefs, and then choose consciously to let the joy and the love and the excitement of our inner child drive our motivation and our ambition and our actions in our lives. And that's really been like I am literally my two favorite fantasy book characters come to life as an adult. And I never saw that role modeled to me. I never had anyone I could look to that was doing, I didn't know you could write professional witch or like intuitive advisor to, you know, help bring magic and manifestation to top leaders in the world and like help cool actors and singers get bigger and better gigs and, you know, like help athletes heal their injuries quicker than ever before. And, you know, I didn't know that that was possible. I couldn't put that on a list when it says, what do you want to be when you grow up? And so I think really tuning back in with that original essence is one of the greatest spells that we can cast on our lives and offers so much beauty and so much healing to the parts of ourselves that have been held back or afraid of doing what we always really wanted.
You've said that I hope more leaders remember how sacred the priestess role has been for those in power. And I think that's one of the main things that we've forgotten in our modern culture is that in ancient times, every king needed a powerful woman and a priestess by their side. And now you're seeing, and this is, you know, from a video that you made on social media that, you know, as men, we're looking at like, we want our life coach to be a man and our mentor and to teach us about how to make the most money available. But then we cast out that divine feminine in the role of us creating our legacy and creating what we want in the world. So what is the priestess's role for the king, the modern king? And how can we step more into that divine, partnership that those two roles create when they're together.
Yeah, the priestess's role, because we have a womb, we have a direct line to the divine, we have this channel that is always open. We do have this gift of intuition. And that was and also the symbology, right? Reading that language of the universe, understanding the way that the divine is communicating at all times. Kings, leaders, powerful men need women by their sides because we just have a different view and a different perspective of the world. And when you look at all the research that's been done about female-led companies, forests, like forests that are managed by women have a 51% higher rate of reforestation. So the forests that are managed by men, half of them, they're just not regrowing well. Over I think that it's over half of the food in Africa, is all the nutrition is provided by small female shareholder farms. And all of these amazing climate projects have done studies on when women are in charge of resources, when women have their own money, they recycle it into their communities. There's far less instances of, HIV, AIDS, infant mortality. Economies run better because women are supporting them and each other. They support other small businesses. The list goes on. When women are given leadership opportunities, we function better as a society in every way. Greater well-being, better mental health, again, greater economic growth, because we're not just constantly striving for that next best thing. We're creating a holistic wellness in the world. And so I think that that's what we're missing. And the modern king, and I see this, like some of the men that I've worked with, I mean, God, big 500, Fortune 500 CEOs where you affect one person, you help him become more well. And then the way that he affects his company, his thousands of employees, and then their thousands of families and friends and communities, because they're better taken care of and because they understand a new way of operating with themselves. I think that there's a difference between rulers and leaders. And right now we have rulers, and they're ruling over everyone, and they're creating rules, and they're pretty rigid, and people are unhappy. When you look at overall gross domestic happiness, mental health, the per capita income, like people are not doing that well right now. And so leaders care about their people, their constituents, their citizenry. They care about their populace. And I think that's what we need to move forward into. And it's not to say that, oh, women need to be all the leaders, but if men listened to women as they lead, if men opened their hearts to being more compassionate in the way that they led and utilized the insight and, again, intuition of women, we would just be in a much better place, a much healthier place. And even, I was sitting with this guy who's a huge coach, like Oscar-winning actors and all these things. And we were sitting together. He was at my house. And I just brought a few things to his attention. I was like, well, I see this, 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 and this. And he was like, damn. He's like, I charge $5 million a year to work with me, and no one has ever said that to me. No one has ever
Wow.
reflected that back to me. No one has ever seen that so clearly and called me out on it. Damn. And I was like, oh yeah, it was like the most obvious instant first thing that I saw.
What
And
was it?
oh well, it was just a piece around the way that he carried himself in different situations. So when I
Mm.
had first met him, he carried himself like a very different version than how I talked to him in that kind of setting and container. And I was like, I just would never have respected you if I'd only met you in that way. Like I would never have respected who you are. I would never have believed that you were like all these people's coaches because you were acting like this. And and I think that's another piece that women, again, goes into the witch wound. We're not taught to give feedback because we get in trouble or we get punished or we're told that we're a bitch. And so I think that, the real men can handle a woman calling them forward. A king is like, yes, good. I want to be better. Help me, show me the way. And sometimes only women can help that process because men just they don't see the same things as we do, and we all have different values too. And so some of the values that women possess, and we hold really dear, they do just create better leadership. And so I think that that's a big piece is you also have to be bold and brazen sometimes as a woman to say the things that would have gotten you in trouble, even a few decades ago.
Hmm.
But I
Beautiful.
find like real kings, real leaders, my goddess, they are just so it's so hot too. Like even the other day I was like hanging out in LA and there was this guy like really struggling to make a fire. And he's, this big, like super famous, whatever, like big important guy, da da da. And he's like trying to make a fire in his own backyard and he's just struggling, it's not going well. And I was just like, "Hey bro, like I'm a really good fire tender. Can I help you?" And he just stepped aside. And I built the fire and got it going in like 30 seconds and it was amazing. And I acknowledged him and I was like, "Hey, I really want to let you know that meant a lot to me and also it's really impressive that you didn't just fight me on it and say, "No, no, no, like I got this. I can keep doing it. Don't worry. Like it's fine." You stepped aside and you let a woman come in and help you. And he was like, "Yeah, you said you were going to be better at it than I was. So like I was struggling. I needed help." And I think that's also a big piece that real leaders need is you have to be willing to ask for support and also receive it.
That's vulnerability as
Yeah.
well as being seen in our weaknesses. Hmm.
Yeah. And
One of
not
the
just
final
weaknesses,
things,
but the ways that we can support each other. It also doesn't have to just be weakness, but we're designed to synergize. We're designed to make 1 + 1 = 3 and be better together. So it also doesn't have to imply that we're less, we just have different gifts.
for sure. Mia, one of the final things I wanted to get in with you is, we're finalizing right now 2024, the year of the dragon. And I know that you've worked very deeply with dragons, and I have connected with them pretty recently as well. I wanted to ask you, what is the role that the dragon medicine has played over this year, and how that's been how that's going to be carried forward in the next years to come?
Well, it's interesting. I dropped the little Vatican thing. There were so many saints who were made so for slaying dragons. And if we see these dragons always guarding hordes of treasure, maybe that's where the Vatican got all their money. They just killed all the dragons and took all the hordes of treasure. And that's how they were funding endless crusades and also able to pay these billions of dollars of reparations and still be one of the richest holdings on earth. To me, this year of the dragon was about alchemy. When the year started, I was like, "Oh, this is gonna be my year. Like, I fucking got this. Like, it's gonna be so great." And I lost so many things and I had so much pain and challenge and shadow. And the dragons are like, "Yeah, what do you think it takes to make the diamonds, to make the jewels? It takes pressure and it takes darkness." All the things that we find most valuable in the world, obviously, like, the tangible things, right? The intangible is what's most valuable. But the gold, the jewels, these mineral deposits, they're all from the deep recesses of the earth. They come from the darkness, they come from the depths. And so, what I have found from this dragon year is they are like an alchemical union of all of the elements, right? They're earthy. We call the energetic meridians of the planet the dragon lines. They're present in every major ancient mythology, so I know they existed. There's no way that they didn't. But, flying creatures have hollow bones and they're very difficult to fossilize. They require very specific mineral circumstances to fossilize. And so they're very earthy, but then they move in this fluid way. Even the way that they breathe, the fire is like liquid fire. And then they are flying through the air, they have all of the elements. And so that to me is the piece that I feel like the dragons are asking us for in this year, is to mine the treasures from our darkness, to become the alchemists, to do the transfiguration of our challenges, of our hardship, of our wounding, and step forward so we can tap in. And this is something I actually just created. I've owned the domain name Slay Your Dragons, but SLEIGH for like 10 years. And I finally just made this epic program, these dragon rituals, for people that I'm super excited about. But that's the big piece, is that we've been taught to slay, SLAY, like kill the dragons, but we need to learn to ride them. It's slay like Santa, SLEIGH, like let's soar upon them. We've been told that heroes killed the dragons, but a hero would learn to ride the dragon. A hero would learn to work with the dragon. And dragons are metaphors for our own mystical power. Again, they're present in every mythology all across the world. Mayans, Romans, Chinese, Siberian, everybody has dragons. Cultures and civilizations that were not connected with each other in any way, shape, or form, they all have dragons, images, stories. And I truly believe that real heroes would have wanted to connect with the dragons. And so it's just like witches. It's just like women. It's just like our magic. It's just like the true power. We've been taught to fear it. We've been taught to villainize it. We've been taught to slay it, to kill it. But the opportunity, especially for these coming years, and next year is the year of the serpent, like this is the skin we have to shed. We have to shed this version of ourselves that feels afraid of the power, afraid of the supernatural abilities, afraid of the deep mystical wisdom and knowledge and insight that we carry, afraid of our, again, innate birthright of pleasure and of being safe in our feelings, right? Like when I see a grown man cry, I'm like, oh, yes, I love this so much. Like it's so beautiful to me. And I'm a strong, direct, assertive alpha female. And I love that because it's what's true. And I feel like everything that the dragons offer us, to me, they are like guardian angels. And there's so much real dragon magic in some of these movies, like the kids' movies, like how Elliot in Pete's Dragon kind of just shimmies and becomes invisible. Well, the way that dragons work with light, right? If you can breathe fire, then you're working with light energy in a different way than we are. And so I've been, you know, my understanding with them is that their scales, the way we think of their scales, are kind of like solar panels. So they can receive and absorb light, and then they can move their energy, right? Talking about beyond 3 dimensions, like in 4 or 5 dimensions, they can move the light to become invisible. And I've used that practice to like cast an invisibility shield over myself before. I'm like, okay, if I could just bend light, how could I become invisible? And I have literally put an invisibility cloak or spell upon myself one time wearing this insane outfit. And I walked into the grocery store and I just was like, I'm invisible. No one can see me. And I was walking through all these aisles and all these places. No one even looked at me in this like crazy, wild, extravagant outfit. And once I finally was like, holy shit, it's fucking working. This is so sick. Oh my God, I knew it. As soon as I had that thought, I broke the spell. But dragons they want to be remembered. Like, that's why people like us, I mean, the amount of calls and texts I get from people being like, oh my God, Mia, I finally met my dragon, or, oh, I experienced the dragons now. Like, I get it, what you're saying. They want to be remembered. And they've been reawakening, especially this year because of some of the trouble that our species is in. And because the true heroes, that William Wallace quote from Braveheart, history is written by those who have hanged the heroes. And it is. And that's what all of our history books, I mean, you look at the way that indigenous civilizations are written about, oh, the savages, I sit with my Hoopa elder in NorCal, and one of the first questions I asked him was, do you have any legends of dragons? He goes, oh, not just legends. Like, our last dragon lived here through the 1700s. I was like, oh, cool. And I asked him about, well, why do we say that, the Native Americans were so savage? And he's like, looks out in this beautiful green river valley. And he's like, look at all the fish. Look at all the animals. Look at all the fruits and the berries that we have. Look at all this abundance. We shared with one another. We worked together. We are a forgiving people. We did not have killing before the white man came. They came and they showed us what savagery really means. And so, like with the dragons, like with witches, like with priestesses, and all of these pieces, the true powers, again, everything we've talked about in this conversation, we have to look a little deeper. We have to read between the lines. We have to see, why would we be told to fear something? Why would we be taught that, this is a danger to our democracy, or this is, these witches are the witches were literally the healers. The witches were the ones who knew the land and knew the plants, and we didn't have pharmaceuticals. We only had plants to heal ourselves. That knowledge was absolutely invaluable. And so I believe that the dragons are here to help us remember, and that we had this year of the dragon to alchemize our fears and the things that we've been taught to be afraid of, and taught to villainize, and taught to demonize. And we're being offered an opportunity to remember that they're actually, most of the things we've been told to fear are our true powers. And they are pathways to connect with the divine directly without anyone in the middle. And so that's what the dragons have certainly been like for me. And they tell me that the way that knights are a brotherhood, they are a sisterhood. They have a feminine way of leading and synergistically operating as a family. And that's what they want us all to remember. They are guardians of not just the physical treasure and the material treasure, but the true treasures, which is the power of our womb, that direct line to the divine, and our innate and eternal magic and mystical prowess. So I believe that that's why we've had a lot of people, have had a hard year, and it's because that's what forges you, and that's what offers you the resilience that you're going to need in order to wage the battle that's coming. And I do believe that it is in service to the golden age, and that that's where we're heading, and that we are absolutely 100% capable of creating the kind of future we all want to live in. But we do have to face off with those shadows and that darkness that's present in the world around us, and tap into our innate divinity. And the dragons have certainly helped me do that.
Do you foresee a possibility that the dragons could infiltrate the Catholic Church to reveal all of the treasures that were stolen in a past time?
Well, I certainly love that idea. Yeah, I'm like, how about that? Get in there and do that. That sounds great. Yeah, I mean, that's what I'm hoping for. I just want all these systems that are harming us and the planet to crumble. Because people say, oh, empires crumble, empires crumble. The Roman Empire never crumbled. It just became the Catholic Church. It's alive and well. They're thriving over there in the Vatican, but luckily people are coming forward and talking about the abuse that they've experienced. And, the Pope is apologizing to Ireland. And this Pope, I like this Pope. He seems cool. He's pretty woke. I'm into this guy. He's definitely a different kind of Pope.
Had to be a Latino.
Exactly. Like, he's got a little flavor. I love this guy. No, he's great. I'm into this guy. But I think that, apocalypse, the word means like the great reveal. And so I do hope that more truths are revealed. And because one of my goals, big lifetime goal, I want to ride on a dragon in this lifetime. I don't care if I have to live to be 160 or 180 to do it, but I am going to ride on a dragon in the 3D, soaring over the mountain ranges and like running my hands on the surface of the sea on the back of a dragon. That is going to happen for me. And so in order for that to happen, our collective belief has to change. We, as a species, we have to find the majority, or the majority has to become cognizant enough of these higher realms, of the significance of our own personal spirituality and our divinity. And I think that's why we're doing this. That's why we're having these conversations. So I certainly hope that the dragons and the angels and all of the unseen forces that are benevolent and that are here for our empowerment and our growth and our physical and spiritual evolution. It's all hands on deck right now. So I hope that, yeah, the truth is revealed, because it would be a much more beautiful world to live in. And I think we all know it's possible.
Beautiful. Beautifully said. Mia, we end every show with a segment called the Final Trio, which are just little rapid fire questions at the
Okay.
end. But first of all, where would you send people to connect with you, with your work, your courses, your mystery schools that you're creating?
Yeah.
Where would you send people to connect with you?
Everything is on miamagik.com. So MIAMAGIK. And that Mia Magic is my YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, everything. So Mia Magic with a K, MIAMAGIK. Available for everyone. And if you want to get on this Slay Your Dragon ritual, it's going to be so good. It's an epic ritual series. And yeah, there's just all different kinds of magic for whatever it is that you're into available.
I love it.
Oh, and my book is called Intuition, of course. And Intuition is available everywhere books are sold.
And the new book, Ritual?
Yeah, not out yet. It's out in October of 2025.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll keep people tuned in for that one.
Great.
We'll have to do a round 2.
Yeah, sounds perfect. Love that.
The final trio, the first 2 questions are personalized to the guest, and the last one we ask at the end of every show. So the first one I had for you is, what's one piece of information that is more true than the illusion we are currently living in?
That magic is real. It is real. You can do rituals to manifest whatever you want, and you can connect with God in whatever way feels right to you, and you have some unique power. There is unique power coursing through you, and you can access it at any time. And I find that nature is the best teacher and the best guide for reclaiming your magic.
And that's very connected with the second question, because it's, what's one spell that you would cast that would wake up the greatest amount of people on the planet?
Yeah, it would just have to be reconnecting to nature, knowing if everyone knew that they are the elements and they are nature, we would treat our planet very differently. And so I would pray, my spell would be that the rulers of our planet become leaders, and that the systems of our world are run by people who know how imperative it is to be in right relationship to nature, and that we as a species remember that collectively.
I love that
Everything
you
would change.
mentioned, from rulers to leaders, because the last question we ask at the end, we call it the time capsule question.
Mm.
And it requires us to travel out a little bit into the future, around 15 to 20 years. I chose out those time frames because I believe that's going to be a time when the young generations of today will be stepping more into leadership positions around the world. And just like any great leader, they had great mentors, priestesses, magicians around them to really understand their own power and their leadership. So you were given the opportunity to leave behind a time capsule for these leaders that they would open in 20 years down the line. And when they opened your time capsule, they would be equipped with the necessary tools, wisdom, knowledge, teachings, rituals, whatever you want to leave behind for them that would allow them to lead in the new earth, the golden age that we're headed into, in the best way possible, in their highest, most aligned way. What would you leave behind in a time capsule for the next generation of leaders?
Ooh. Well, they're going to have some kind of like futuristic way of accessing information. So whatever the futuristic equivalent of like the thumb drive, of like a little, like an SD card, right? And I would have epic books on permaculture and dragons and mysticism and ritual and conscious leadership. So like there's a lot of information, and then I would leave seeds and crystals and statues of deities and on that thumb drive, there would also be like meditation. So I would record a bunch of rituals for them and like drop this dragon wisdom and knowledge and practices. That's the thing, is they'd have to do the practices. You can't just open my time capsule. You have to do the practices. And offering to these leaders some of the rituals and the practices that have completely transformed and transfigured my life, so that I know that they would do them, and the way that they made decisions and the way that they operated would shift and change.
And what's one ritual that you would leave behind for people now entering a new year as we're closing out 2024? And what rituals are you going to be participating in that you would invite us to participate with you?
Well, I would leave behind, I did this epic Gemini full moon ritual yesterday, and it was just really deep breathing and deep reflection and looking back on mistakes and choices and then looking forward. So it's like a timeline hopping experience and a quantum shift and leap. And but it had a really deep cathartic somatic element to it. And so I would connect people with their bodies through their breath, in their movement, and then show them all the magic that's possible through just what you have right here that God made you, with nothing else outside of you, but you and your breath and your body can create miracles.
Mia Magik, thank you for your infinite wisdom, your intuition, for allowing us into your space, into the magic that you hold. And I'm really grateful that we got the opportunity to connect. We went really mystical. We went very mystical.
Yeah.
So I really trust people will really ground that information in, because you are so grounded as well. And they will continue to remember the magic that they are and what they can create through being in their real power. Such a beautiful conversation. Thank you. And I hope to do this again very soon.
Yeah, me too. Thank you so much, love. Appreciate you so deeply.